Atlanta Business and Data Science Academy for the Gifted. The animated series. Season 1, Building an AI-powered fundraising and marketing solution. Episode 5, Building a Reusable Email API. Alright everyone, today we're going to solve a real business problem instead of just writing code for the sake of writing code. Our real-world use case is Atlanta Local. Right now, Atlanta Local is running a fundraising campaign to raise money for its first headquarters. One of the first initiatives inside that headquarters will be launching the Atlanta Business and Data Science Academy for the Gifted. As you can imagine, a campaign like this requires a lot of communication. We need to send outreach emails, follow-up emails, thank you emails, campaign updates, and donation confirmations. As I continued building software, I noticed almost every application I created eventually needed to send email. Instead of rebuilding that functionality over and over again, I decided to solve the problem once. Our goal today is to build a reusable email service that's exposed through an email API. From this point forward, any future application can simply communicate with this API instead of implementing its own email functionality. By the end of today's lesson, we'll understand the architecture, implement the backend, test it, and then connect our frontend to it. Before we jump into the code, let's look at the overall architecture. We intentionally split the application into 5 files, so each one has a single responsibility. The email API receives requests from the frontend. The email service contains the business logic. The mailer is responsible for communicating with the SMTP server. The template loader renders email templates into final HTML. Finally, the attachment service prepares any files before they're sent. Rather than trying to understand everything at once, we're going to tackle each file one at a time. By the end, you'll see how one request flows through all 5 layers before an email is finally delivered. This first file is the front door into our email system. Notice we're importing Blueprint, Johnify, and Request from Flask. Those are the Flask utilities we'll use to build our API. The only dependency from our own application is the email service, which we'll cover next. Next, we create our blueprint with the URL prefix API email. That simply means every endpoint in this file will automatically begin with that prefix. Our first endpoint is send. Its purpose is to send one regular email. When the frontend calls this endpoint, it sends an HTTP post request containing the recipient email address, the subject, the HTML content, and optionally any attachments. Inside the function, we first log that the request was received. Then we call request, get John to retrieve the John body that the frontend sent us. We store that inside a variable called payload. Once we have that data, notice that the API doesn't send the email itself. Instead, it passes everything to email service, send email. The email service returns a dictionary telling us whether the operation succeeded. If it succeeds, we return HTTP to 100. Otherwise, we return HTTP for 100. Finally, we convert that dictionary into John and send it back to the frontend. The campaign endpoint and preview endpoint follow this exact same pattern. The only thing that changes is which email service method they call. Now we're in the business logic layer. This class coordinates the entire email workflow. You'll notice every function is a static method. That simply means we don't need to create an email service object before using it. We can call a mail service, send email directly. The send email function starts by validating that the required information exists. If something like the recipient, subject, or HTML body is missing, it immediately returns an error instead of continuing. If validation passes, this layer delegates the actual sending to the mailer. The send campaign email function builds on that idea. Right now, we're simulating campaign data, but eventually this method will load campaign records, contacts, templates, update metrics, labels, and history. Before sending anything, it asks the template loader to render the final HTML. Once that's finished, everything is handed to the mailer. Finally, preview email allows us to render an email without actually sending it. The mailer has one responsibility: send prepared emails. It doesn't know anything about campaigns or business logic. First, we load our SMTP configuration from environment variables. Then we create the email message, populate the from, to, and subject fields, attach the HTML body, and ask the attachment service to prepare any attachments. After that, we connect to the SMTP server, start TLS, authenticate with our SMTP credentials, and send the message, whether the email succeeds or fails. The finally block always runs so temporary files are cleaned up. This keeps the mailer reusable because its only job is communicating with the mail server. The template loader is responsible for turning stored content into one final HTML email. Sometimes our email starts as a template file. Sometimes it starts as HTML. Sometimes it starts as Markdown. This class knows how to handle all three. It can load a template from disk, inject gender variables, convert Markdown into HTML, and finally wrap everything inside one shared branded layout. That means every email automatically has the same branding, while the body of the email changes based on the content we provide. The final piece is the attachment service. Its job is to prepare attachments before the mailer sends the email. If we're given a local file, it verifies the file exists. If we're given a Google Drive link, it downloads that file into a temporary location. Once every attachment has been prepared, it returns a standardized list back to the mailer. After the email has been sent, the cleanup function removes any temporary files so the server doesn't accumulate unnecessary files over time. Let's put everything together. The front end sends a request to the email API. The email API passes that request to the email service. The email service renders templates using the template loader, prepares attachments when necessary, and hands everything to the mailer. The mailer authenticates with the SMTP server and sends the email. That's the complete flow through our architecture. Our next step is to implement this code and verify that the backend works correctly. Once we've confirmed the backend can successfully send emails, we'll connect our frontend. So every future application can reuse this email service through the email API.